Welcome to the End Times Podcast, hosted by Dr. Stephen Phinney. This prophetic, life-changing podcast is dedicated to exploring the profound truths of the end times and their impact on our lives today. We are thrilled to have you join us as we delve into these critical topics. Today, we are honored to welcome our special guest. Get ready for an enlightening and transformative discussion that will deepen your understanding and inspire your indwelling faith in Yeshua. Thank you for taking the time to join us today on the End Times Podcast.
Wars and rumors of wars. We hear it in the news every day. Are these signs of the end times? Count on it. However, these signs are the birth pangs of the end to humanity, not the end. It says in Matthew 24, verse 6, "You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for these things must take place, but that is not yet the end." While our passage addresses the Jews' second sign of the destruction of Jerusalem during the time of the Antichrist, there is a message for all authentic believers. See to it that you are not frightened. Jesus is reminding us that the end times events must take place, and we are not to be shaken by his prophecies unfolding. The mere mention of the Battle of Armageddon sends chills up the spines of all those who hear the word spoken. There are most likely few, Christian or not, who have not heard about this futuristic war. However, most do not understand the prophetic connections of this war to Revelation's predictions. While the earthly view of the Battle of Armageddon is bad enough, there is yet a more horrifying perspective from the angel who takes charge of this battle, Michael, the archangel. Let's check out his perspective through actor Brian Pitts.
Few angels are mentioned by name in the Bible. I'm one, Michael. Jude describes me as an archangel. I am also mentioned in the books of Daniel and Revelation. Can't help but notice all the angels in the book of Revelation. The last named angel in the Bible is Abaddon, also known as Apollyon, the angel of the abyss that John names in Revelation. He was king of the locust-like creatures that tortured people when the fifth angel sounded the trumpet. I get noticed shortly after the seventh angel blew the seventh trumpet. After that trumpet sound, God's temple in heaven was opened. Then the scene shifted, and John got to see amazing things. A giant red dragon with 7 heads and crowns and 10 horns. The dragon's tail swept 1/3 of the stars from the sky and flung them to earth. The dragon stood in front of the woman to devour her child when it was born. The male child was snatched up to God, and the woman fled to the desert for 1,260 days, where God took care of her. My turn. There was war in heaven, and my angels and I fought against the dragon and his angels. We defeated the dragon and his angels and hurled them to the earth. The dragon was Satan, the arch enemy of mankind from day one. We defeated him. That epic battle gets only 3 verses in your Bible. Now, I'm not complaining that it only gets 3, although I do think John could have been more expansive. What I want to point out is why these verses illustrate why Revelation is so fascinating and frustrating, and why there are so many interpretations of it. Ask yourself these kinds of questions. Was this war literal or symbolic? If literal, did it happen in the distant past or in the future? If symbolic, what does it symbolize? How does this account fit into the overall story of Revelation? Does this mean that Satan is on earth now because I put him there? Why didn't I just kill Satan instead of hurl him to earth? If you delve into Revelation, you find out that you never get to the end of these types of questions. Way more questions than answers. Fortunately, as John said at the beginning, You get blessed by reading, hearing, and taking to heart the words of revelation. You don't have to understand it to get a blessing. Anyway, after hurled to earth, Satan was filled with fury and pursued the woman. But God protected the woman. So Satan went to make war against the rest of the offspring of the woman. Those offspring were those who obey God's commandments and follow Jesus. It's not often that John explains the things he is seeing in heaven. But at this point, you know that Satan is the dragon, and he is in a war to destroy the people of God. You know that I, Michael, defeated Satan and sent him to earth from heaven. The next thing John saw was a fearsome beast arising from the sea. It had 10 horns, 7 heads, 10 crowns on his horns, and a blasphemous name on each head. Satan gave the beast all of his power and great authority, so that the whole world was astonished enough to follow and worship Satan and the beast. Well, not the whole world. The saints of God, whose names were written in the book of life, didn't, and they endured great persecution because of it. Another beast arose from the earth and was given great power to enact on behalf of the first beast. He set up an image of the first beast and forced everyone to worship it. He had such power that no one could buy or sell anything unless they had the mark of the beast on their right hand or forehead. The mark or name or number of the beast was 666. This number has permeated your culture in such an interesting way, often associated with strange and mystical power. References abound. In rock bands alone, it's code almost. Anytime anyone wants to infer apocalyptic or satanic mayhem, it's 666.
All wars lead up to the final war, the Battle of Armageddon. The 12th chapter of Revelation reveals how this horrific battle will come about. While we will spend adequate time dealing with this war, it is important to know that all wars are strategic steps to the grand finale. Wars have a single purpose: nations gaining sovereignty over their land. However, world wars are a different story. World wars work to gain sovereignty over the global community. Many times that is accomplished in individual countries snatching up the smaller nations. Large nations grow larger and stronger in world's economy and global dominance. While Satan could care less about the nations protecting their sovereignty, he is more interested in countries that like to play around with global influence, such as Russia, America, Europe, and even Israel. In my studies of the end times, I keep my eye on these 4 primary countries. My second focus is on a group that is not considered an official nation, the Islamic State. Outside of Israel, the primary 4 countries are not centered on religion. The Islamic State is all about religion. Since the Battle of Armageddon is based on religion, the 2 final religions battling for worship are none other than Judaism and Islam. Although it must be noted that the 4 primary countries will represent 4 key ideologies. The Antichrist needs to conquer the world: Israel, Judaism, Europe, economy, Russia, military, and America, of course, and that's culture. The 5th, governance, that is stated in Revelation, but is not an established nation, and that is the New Babylon, which is a one-world religion. According to God's holy word, one of the first signs we watch for in the wars leading up to the final war is the gathering of the Jews in their homeland. Folks, we have seen more Jews return to Israel in the last decade than any other time in history. Secondly, Revelation tells us that the consolidation of world power under an Antichrist from Europe is one of the key preludes of the Great Tribulation. Third in line is the prediction Ezekiel made of the day when Russia will lead an alliance of nations that will attack Mother Israel, which ignites the Battle of Armageddon. During the tribulation of Satan, we expect a shift in global finances, activating one world digital commerce. Finally, Revelation's whore, one world religion, will surface and dominate the world. While most think this is the Catholic Church, I believe it will be none other than the people of Islam. Let's take a closer look at our first country, Israel. Most know Israel became a registered nation with the United Nations on May 14, 1948. What most don't know, in July of 2022, Israel dissolved their government, setting her up for grabs by other countries. The U.S. President scheduled a meeting with the temporary Prime Minister within a week of that announcement. The Parliament's reasoning was Israel would yield to the country that protects her during threats of nuclear war. With that in mind, the U.S. President guaranteed protection under the conditions of NATO's doctrines and agreements. The problem with that is NATO is the militant force of the global leader of the European Union, which is the home base of this final Antichrist. The Bible, primarily through the book of Daniel, predicts that Israel will sign an agreement with the Antichrist for 7 years. As most Bible readers know, Israel catches on to the scheme 3.5 years into the agreement. Israel breaks the agreement, which activates the second half of the tribulation, which is called the Great Tribulation. Despite the United Nations agreement to call Israel a nation in 1948, God established the Abrahamic covenant, making the day of Abraham's birth 1948 BC. Within this covenant, God promised to make Abraham a great nation. Furthermore, God revealed that the nation coming from Abraham would be Israel. The only nation, by the way, God approves as his nation. This single promise has ignited wars from that day forward. When you hear of wars or rumors of wars, always think of Israel.
Thank you for taking the time to join us today on the End Times podcast. We hope you found our discussion insightful and inspiring. Please share this podcast with your family and friends and help us spread the message far and wide. Until next time, stay blessed and always remember, Yeshua loves you.